Happy Wednesday from Fresno. It is a strange Wednesday because the Steelers are playing the Ravens right now on a Wednesday afternoon. And of course, my sympathies are pretty clear. We were very much looking forward to the Steelers-Ravens game last Thursday, supposed to be Thanksgiving, the final of the triple-header. And a COVID outbreak among the Ravens pushed it back to Sunday. Continued uncontained outbreak pushed it to Tuesday night, and then today and Wednesday. It should have been tonight, but because NBC has a tradition of broadcasting the lighting of the tree at Rockefeller Center in New York City, we get stuck with a Wednesday afternoon game. I feel like I'm kind of getting sick. Going to need to go home and watch the second half, perhaps. Be at home. Anyway, it's Wednesday afternoon, and I'm just going to continue briefly my series of videos thinking about the different-ness with which God has made us. 2 weeks ago, I looked at Genesis 1:27. Last week, I looked at Matthew 19:4, where Jesus referred back to Genesis 1:27, where the writers say that God created humans in the image of God, male and female. He created them. That this different-ness that God has given us is built into creation. And male and femaleness is obviously the most obvious way in which we see the different-ness of creation. But there are other ways in which God has made us different. So what I want to say today is that different-ness is not an excuse for prejudice or discrimination. Galatians 3:28 says this: "There is no longer Jew or Greek. There is no longer slave or free. There is no longer male and female. For you are all one in Christ Jesus." Now, some translations, some commentators gloss over the fact, or perhaps miss the fact, that this doesn't say there's no longer Jew or Greek, slave or free, male or female. But the Greek's very clear that this says Jew or Greek, slave or free, male and female. Why does this say male and female as opposed to or Jew or Greek, slave or free, but yet male and female? Well, it's because Paul is referring back to the way in which this phrase, male and female, had been used in prejudicial terms by Jewish leaders in his day and time. Male and female is, of course, that quote from Genesis 1:27. And there were many Jewish leaders, rabbis, Pharisees in the first century world who used this phrase as a way of discriminating against women, of saying that God has made women to be inferior to men, totally missing the point of the creation narrative. But for example, you would have Jews who would pray during synagogue, "God, I thank you that you have not made me a foreigner, that you've not made me a slave, and that you've not made me a woman." This was the common Jewish prayer in synagogue in the first century. That women were not allowed, certainly in the congregation, so to speak, but they were not only segregated, they were denigrated. They were placed on a very lower place from men, and you had men who would openly thank God for not making them a female. And so this idea of God making humans male and female was misused and abused by Jewish leaders who used this different-ness as an excuse for discrimination. And we know in our own world, in our own day and time, there are ways in which people have used different-ness as a basis for discrimination. The sad history of racism in our country is proof enough that people have looked at the color of skin as being somehow emblematic of as one group of people as being less than. And this horrific legacy within our country is something that plagues us even today, as the scars and the remnants of that still rear their head from time to time. But what Paul is saying in this passage, by saying there's no longer male and female, he's not trying to say that people are not male or that they're not female. Because different-ness is something God has built into creation. I think, the fact that I'm a male is the way it is. I mean, there are times when a female might wish they're a male, or a male might wish they're a female. And I'm not trying to get into all the gender fluidity stuff that exists in our society today. But I think the fact that God has made us a certain way, it just is the way it is. There may be ways in which we can work with that, but it's not the point to say that gender does not exist. Because gender does exist. There's no way for men to have children, for example. There are real differences between men and women. There are also real differences between men. Not all men are the same. There are real differences between women. Not all women are the same. But the idea that Paul says there's no longer male and female doesn't mean that men are not men, that women are not women. What he's saying is that this phrase, male and female, can no longer be used as a source of discrimination and prejudice against one part of the human race. See, God has made us all. God has made us with different-ness. And that different-ness does not give us an excuse to have prejudice or to discriminate against others. We are all equal in the sight of God. And we all have roles to play in life, which can be equal roles. The roles that we play are not set by the color of our skin, by our age, by our socioeconomic background, and not by our gender. We're thankful to God. The different-ness of creation allows us to have diversity and to balance one another. But that different-ness cannot be an excuse to separate what God has brought together. So just thank you for your time today and watching this short little video. Pray you have a great day and great rest of the week, and go Steelers.